Welcome to Punch Keys Podcast. I'm Poppy Minix, your co-host, bringing you blunt talk for the fiction novelist.
And I'm Cascade, your other writerly co-host. If you love to ramble about writing and need a tribe, you found us.
Are you ready? We're uncorking now. Let's talk about punching those keys.
Poppy, guess what time it is?
Oh, it is totally Punch Keys time.
You know it, woman.
Yes.
Punch the keys, or right now just talk about punching the keys.
Yeah, we're going to talk about punching the keys, I think.
Yeah, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about something I love tonight. We're going to trope it up.
Yes.
Doesn't she sound super excited, guys?
I am not as nearly as enthused about tropes as Cass is, but it's okay. It's all good. This is a nervous one for me.
I'm a little worried that I'm going to get on the soapbox and just talk the entire time and not let you talk because I'm so excited. And I have so many strong opinions and thoughts about tropes.
Right. We've talked about them for many years about tropes, and it's always been like it's up there with theme with me. It's just a scary place sometimes. I'm starting to embrace them more and more, putting a toe in the water of the tropes. So I'm embracing them, but at the same time, it's still just sometimes a scary territory.
Okay. Don't listen to her, guys. That's not scary. Okay. So,
got you.
Got you. We're going to do this. So I was thinking about it and looking at tropes. So what is a trope? Basically, in my opinion, there are two different types of tropes. You've got your character tropes and you've got your genre/plot tropes. Tropes that apply to your plot line. And they are very often genre specific. Some tropes fit several genres. But So we'll tackle character tropes first. A character trope would be the mean girl, the nerdy sidekick.
Yes.
The perfect hero who has no faults. And a lot of these tropes are things that we've talked about not doing before. Mm-hmm. So most times if you what's a trope? I'm going to go Google this. You're going to get 20 articles being like tropes and how to avoid them. Don't do tropes. The world is going to blow up and your story is going to be hated. Don't do tropes.
Right?
I don't know if I'm on that boat. Actually, I know I'm not on that boat.
I'm not. I was at first because everybody told me how not to be on the trope wagon. But you know what? Guess what? If you're writing a book, it has a trope.
So I'm going to pull up my little document because, yes.
She prepared.
I kind of usually do. I just don't talk about it. I am research obsessed, guys. I have issues. I love me some research. Okay, so I listed out some different character tropes just to give you an idea. So the chosen one, the damsel in distress, the character who is the dumb muscle. I already talked about the quirky tech geek sidekick, the femme fatale, the girl next door, the funny fat girl, the weird and different. It's usually a female who dresses differently and goes to her own tune. I think of what's her face in Harry Potter.
Luna Lovegood. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So these are character tropes. And as I list these tropes, most of them, you probably are like, ugh. Okay, here is my theory. I have a theory. Are you ready for this?
I am totally ready for this theory.
Okay, my theory is if your character is entirely this trope, everything about them can be defined by these attributes of this trope, your reader's going to roll their eyes when they walk on the page and every time they walk on the page.
All right, that is fair.
Okay, I think there's a reason for it. We talked about with protagonists and antagonists and character voice and all this stuff about depth, about backstory, about understanding what motivates them and why. And I think if you just use a trope and that's all the character is, you haven't done that deeper development.
I agree.
And so I think using a trope as just the trope is where you get in trouble.
Yeah.
So to break that, there's really common advice. Whenever you see a trope, you either are told avoid tropes altogether, right? And then there are some articles and bloggers and different things that are going to tell you if you use the trope, do it in a unique way. Do a twist or a spin on it. And sure, to me that means develop the character more.
It's really hard to wrap your head around. Okay, just make it more better. Wait, what? I don't understand what
better.
Right better. It's well, how? I'm confused here. How do you make a trope great? How do you make it different? It's a trope. By nature, it is the same. So how do you make it different?
If I change it and twist it, then is it still the trope?
Then is it still the trope, right? Man, it is very difficult to kind of wrap your head around how in the world to do that.
So I think there's some, and I think these are the great stories that stick with you and the great characters that stick with you. Oh gosh, I wish I would have looked this up. Well, I'm just going to say it and someone can look it up for me. But I think a great example of character tropes, we have to talk about The Breakfast Club.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Right? So, and this is an example of when you take a common trope and you twist it.
Mm-hmm.
So all of these characters presented as these classic tropes, they're all there for after school detention.
Yep.
And they all have different roles, and you have expectations of who they are based on this trope. But by the end of the movie, none of the characters are actually what the trope was.
Right.
They have used it as a way to feel better interacting with people, or for people to have a perception for them, or to please people, or sometimes it's easy to just let people expect the worst of you.
Yes.
Whatever their excuses were, that is twisting a trope.
Yes.
Successfully. The Breakfast Club is like a lesson in how to twist character tropes.
Mm-hmm.
I also think you can add unique attributes in. So, like, if you use a character trope, if you use the mean girl, which is mean, you have to have other attributes that you add to her.
It can't just be the stereotype mean girl.
There has to be other layers, other sides, because as people, we act differently to all different people. We all have insecurities. We all have mistakes. We all have lies that we tell ourselves, that we tell other people. And so if you start layering that stuff on along with your trope, I think you're going to come out with a unique character that also delivers a familiar trope.
Yeah.
Which is a good thing. Hear me out.
Yeah.
Everyone says it's bad. Avoid tropes. But if you use this, it's like it's a comfort zone, right? It's a snuggly blanket.
It is a snuggly blanket. This is what I'm expecting. This is what I'm going to curl up with. This is going to be something that I already have my brain set into this matter. Here we go.
And it's good sometimes to let readers have that. You don't have to instantly make them, you don't have to explain everything out to them and show them everything. Sometimes a trope can be used as a writing tool where you have this trope, all of a sudden it automatically plugs in information.
Yes.
For the reader, which can help you if it's used properly.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I have no complaints about that. We are on the same page this time, Cass.
Okay. So I'm about ready to hop into genre and plot tropes. Is there anything else you wanted to say on character tropes?
I'm learning to embrace them. I had so many years of people telling me that, oh God, tropey. Ugh. And I think it is a subjective thing as to what you like as a reader and what tropes that you jump into. And if you are writing, if you're starting out writing, you're probably writing something that you really enjoy reading. And so I think it's perfectly fine for you to embrace that trope and don't have somebody tell you that you're not allowed to do that. Hang on to it and just keep it in your mind that this is not a wrong thing to be doing because tropes are everywhere. There's no escaping them. And I don't think that we should. It gives people an expectation to be able to understand what all of this is going to be about. It is. I really enjoy that home metaphor of it. It's just a cozy blanket. It's a sweater. It's a sweater that you are familiar with and you pull out every year and you put on and it's like, yep. I know what I'm getting into right now. Do you have motorcycles?
There's a motorcycle
in your
going
house?
by outside. And my house is so old that it's like antique windows down here in the writing dungeon. Yes, I have a writing dungeon. And they vibrate from the motorcycle. So, and like...
That was a loud one. I don't know if we've ever heard that loud before. That was that person is motorcycling it up. All right. Yep. But yeah, that's all I have to say about tropes is that just hear us out and it's not always a bad thing.
So I do want to insert right here. We talked about how it's not always a bad thing, how it's a good thing, embrace it, it's a cozy blanket. There are exceptions.
Yes. Gosh,
so I kind of want to throw that out here. And I think the exceptions for tropes, when it can't be a cozy blanket and when it's not something that's feel good and it's something you shouldn't do, I think is if it falls into a stereotype.
I could see that.
A really popular one is, I was researching, there's two that are like instant, I don't care what your argument is or how much you think you need it. get creative and refigure your story. If you need the white savior, I'm not talking about Jesus Christ in your story. If you want to have Jesus in your story, go for it. I'm talking about the character who is white, who is saving a minority.
Yes.
Don't do it. No. And the other one is rape, which I don't know if there is a correct way to use it. It's been used so long, so poorly that people are just going to raise their pitchforks, and they kind of have a right to, I think.
I would agree with you on that.
So anything that you can think of that is a stereotype for a group of people, for a culture, that's when, sure, you could call it a trope, but it's more a stereotype. And now you're just furthering it.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Knock it off.
Yeah.
So it's important to give up your stereotypes, to not classify your stereotypes as tropes.
Yes.
They're different. Mm-hmm. They're definitely different. Okay, so now I really want to dive into genre
so excited.
And plot tropes.
Oh, I love your excitement into this. I'm like, it's good. It's all good. It's all good.
Because it just clicks in my brain. It clicks so much. So I think it clicks so much, and there's going to be several of you that you're gonna bristle at me. I'm going to get some bristlings because I'm going to tell you right now that if you want to use tropes as a tool and you want to find a readership and you want to have a fan base, you need to know your genre. I'm sorry. And I know, you're probably 3 or 4 genres in one, right? And you're going to make this new genre, and you're actually just combining 3 genres and calling them this one genre. That's not really how it works. This industry has been around for a long time, and as amazing as you are, you don't get to tell the industry how to classify types of books. So I would really recommend finding out what your genre is.
Past Poppy is kicking rocks right now. Past Poppy is not happy with you, but you know what?
I know.
Present Poppy is like, yep.
Past Poppy would have thrown me in the figure and been like, I'm doing what I want.
Past Poppy had 7 genres combined into her work in progress. But you know what? One. Yeah, those are 2 different words. ONEWON. One. So,
okay, I don't know what that means.
It means that you have to figure out what genre your work is most like. Yes, you might have elements of other genres. You might have some horror elements, romance elements, fantasy elements, magical whatever elements. But you know what? All in all, you have one very specific one that wins. It is the genre that rules them all. So,
and it's not because your story is unoriginal or we're trying to make cookie cutter stories.
Gosh, no.
It's because this is how you find your readers.
Yes.
You want readers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And readers break down into these genres because they like certain types of stories. There are certain expectations within those genres.
They do.
And within those genres, there are tropes. Yummy tropes.
There are yummy tropes. Cozy.
So, okay, so let's talk about some genre tropes. Gosh, they're so fun. So with horror, you're going to get the trope where the last person alive is the hot chick. Usually,
the hot chick
she's a virgin.
Yes.
Her shirt is probably plastered to her boobs in some way.
Because it was raining.
Probably. And she ran around a lot without a bra.
Yes.
So there's a lot of controversy on this trope, which I really love. And it's really fun because people love and hate this trope.
Yes.
Because you can look at it as females are strong and amazing, and it's horror's doing awesome. They believe women are survivors.
But
are women so fragile and gentle and so revered for their gentle and fragileness that viewers are going to be upset if you kill them?
Ooh, that too. It's like a backhanded compliment. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's all what you do with it, and then there's the house on the graveyard. There's just so many tropes that you can play with. Yeah. So then you go into sci-fi. Gosh, what are some good sci-fi tropes? The evil AI.
Oh, the evil
one of my
AI
favorites.
Is a great trope. Yes.
Oh, I love an evil AI or hidden AI that you didn't know was the AI.
That is going to take over the world. Yes, the taking over the world AI. Check. That is a trope.
I fall for it every dang time. Not because the story is the same every time,
True.
But because when they use it, there are elements that I am expecting and I love, and I'm expecting to be surprised as well. Yeah. I'm expecting twists and turns along with this type of trope that I love.
Yeah.
And then we have, romance. We've got lots of romance tropes.
Romance tropes! Man, are some romance tropes popular, and readers will embrace those tropes.
Kissy Face Poppy, why don't you give us some romance tropes?
Oh, man. Let me just list off the top of my head. I mean, we're talking billionaire romance, baby daddy romance, tropical island, people who get stuck together because there's only the one bed trope. I mean, there are so many tropes where it's just really amazing. And I mean, even as a reader, as a writer, I adhere to some of those as well. And there's some that I stay away from. And there are just, it's very tropey in there. And it's not necessarily a bad thing because romance readers inhale books. I mean, you're talking like some of them can read a book a day, no problem. And it does not waste time for them to say, I am going to love this secret billionaire tropical island romance. Yes, because you know what? I know that this trope is going to have a secret billionaire romance. He's, in a tropical island setting, and that is for me.
Hold on. I'm going to do this, Poppy. I'm sorry. But if those tropes are hitting your trigger spots, just keep an eye out for outcoming books from Poppy.
Okay, so yes, I have officially embraced my trope writing, and I have taken multiple tropes and thrown them, and I think about it now when I'm starting to write a series. I planned out a series of 5 books, and I have looked at tropes for each because I want them to be different, but at the same time, there is a comfort zone in very specific things. Rival lovers. I mean, there's just so many. Friends to lovers, childhood friendship, angry people who don't want to be friends, enemies to lovers. Like, gosh, it goes on and on and on, and it goes on some more. And that's just because I'm really super familiar with romance. So I am positive that there are tropes in certain literary or different things that I just am not aware of as much because romance is my thing. But we embrace the tropes like nobody's business because
every genre does.
Easy to fall in. Every genre does. Yeah. And it's so easy to fall in. When you're looking for something to read, you go, even the people who are like, psh, tropes, psh. All right, read the back of the book cover, okay? Read the back of the book, and I bet you that you will see certain things that will go, ding in my head, ding in my head, ding in my head. That's a trope for me. And you won't know it's a trope. But you know what? It touches on what you want to read because you know that's a comfort zone for you. It's not something to shy away from. It's something to embrace.
So, and I really love this concept of what you read on the back of a book because I feel like this is a great gauge. So for me, like if I'm reading the back of a book, I'm probably going to pick up a fantasy book. Let's face it.
Sure.
Probably going to be urban fantasy. I might grab an epic. I don't know. Who knows? It's going to be fantasy of some sort. If I flip it over and it gives me the chosen one trope, the trope where this one person is the chosen one to fix the world from ending or whatever it is, right? This is done all the time in fantasy.
Gosh, it is huge.
Here's the thing. It doesn't make me stop reading if I see that trope. I like that trope if it's done well. So I read within the back of the book if they can give me that trope and what they have done uniquely with that trope.
Yes.
I'm like, I'm sold. I'm going to get this book.
Right.
They've presented something I'm familiar with and understand, and they've given me a curveball on what they're going to do different with it.
Right.
You grab me. I'm in. And I think that's where tropes become so useful later down the road and knowing your genre. Because whether you're self-publishing or whether you're going the traditional publishing route, either way, you have to pitch your book. You have to pitch your book to what type of readers will be drawn to it, and you have to try and track those readers. So you're either telling an agent, this is the readers for my book, these type of readers who like this is why they're going to love it, or you're putting it on the back of your book because you're self-publishing.
Yes.
Either way, understanding your genre, understanding the tropes, understanding how you've used the trope and how you've done something different with it.
Pitching it correctly is what you need to do.
It's going to be amazing. So don't be afraid of tropes, guys. They're tools.
They are tools. You can't escape them, and you shouldn't. Seriously, I totally get it. It's really, really difficult to wrap your head around it as a new writer, because you're like, I am going to write something so unique and so different. Nobody's ever read it before. It is just, it's amazingly different, and it's
I'm
just
totally doing a cringe face, guys.
She is doing an amazing cringe face, because it's true. Because, everyone in the publishing industry is going,
oh, that's so cute.
That's adorable. You are sweet. And God, do not put that in a query letter that is like, this has been nothing that is written before, because people are going to go, oh, then, okay, sure, it hasn't been written
Well,
before.
here's the deal. How do you sell something?
How do you sell something that's never been written before? And yes, you can take things and you can spin it on its head. And there are so many incredible books that I have read that I have never even thought that a concept like that was existent in the world, but there is still parts of it that are familiar, because that is what grabs you, and that is what pulls you in, because it's like, oh, I can get behind this romance. I can get behind this, enemies to lovers. I can get behind this. And then they take it and they spin it in this way where the words are incredible. The situation is out of control, and it is just stunning. Like, the whole work just blows your freaking mind, and that is incredible. But it doesn't mean that you have this unique thing that's never, ever, 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 ever been done before or thought of, but you just took it and made it something incredible by voice, by the story. I mean, it's the plot, it's everything that you've made this into, but it doesn't mean that there's nothing familiar about it, because who would read something that's completely unfamiliar? There's just, when people say there's nothing that's never been done before in writing, I mean, there is truth to it. There's truth to it. There are fairy tales, there are legends and lore, and the Bible. There are so many different things that we have been ingrained and we have passed through, because storytellers pass on this information, and it is literally our human nature to take those stories and live by them and think of them and consider the dangers that they tell you about and what we want to portray to the future. So why would we reject that and say, this is nothing like any of those things? And you can't. It's just, take it for what it is, embrace it, and don't be scared of it. And when people tell you that it's wrong to have a trope, then just be like, okay, that is your opinion, and that's cool. And if you think that tropes are dumb, then that is cool too. But I say embrace it, because it took me a while to figure that out. It took me a while of people telling me that tropes are wrong, and now thinking on it at the back of the book blurb stuff that we're trying to figure out how to sell and how to get our books into the hands of the readers that need to read it. You want to embrace those tropes and say, this is familiar to you, but this is what I've done with it.
You totally hit me when you're talking about fairy tales. Okay, I have this theory, and I think it's because I read this particular book. Okay, so I read this book. I have this book with me. It's called The Wisdom of Fairy Tales. It's by Rudolf Meyer. It's a fantastic book because it goes through and it breaks down what makes a fairy tale.
Neat.
This is interesting on multiple levels because fairy tales were passed down verbal forever. And there's a structure to them. There's a purpose to them. There's a pattern that stuck with the people. Right? Readers are people.
Right.
And so there's patterns. There's chords to hit, and understanding patterns, not just like in plotting and formatting the actual sentence structure and paragraphs. All of that's important too. But I have a belief that you can format a concept of a story, and you can tell it in a certain pattern, and you can have certain elements to it. And I think you need tropes in it, because I think that readers, this part I read in an article, I wish I remember where it was. I read in an article that readers develop patterns. So like as readers, we tend to like a lot of similar things. Sure, maybe you like a couple genres, but there's certain things you like within those genres. There's certain things that you're drawn to, and you read more of that. And you're training your brain in a certain pattern and a certain expectation. And a lot of times, if you're talking about story concepts, you're training your brain in tropes that you like. Tropes that you don't touch, tropes that you love. And looking at how you can form that and capitalize on that as a writer is really kind of fun.
That's really fascinating. Yes.
There was a really great I don't have it here, and so I won't. But I will say you should read that book. If you're interested in the idea that a concept can have a framework and how it sticks in someone's head and can be passed down, this book was phenomenal. It blew my mind. It's awesome. Again, Wisdom of Fairy Tales, Rudolph Meyer.
That's good to know. I'm going to write that down. I have not read that one.
Yeah, it's super good. It's like, I think I found it for like $1 in a used bookstore.
You have the best used bookstore finds.
Oh, I love used bookstores.
Man.
Yeah, they're super fun.
That's awesome.
But yeah. So, and I think ultimately what it comes down to is you want your story to be liked, right? Like,
I mean, that's the idea.
You want readers, you want people to gobble it up. And I mean, for me, I want people to think about the story after they put it down. Like, that's a big thing for me. I want to get in someone's head with my story. And I think understanding how it's been done throughout time and throughout ages and how it's done now, I think Tropes is a huge part of that.
I would agree with you. And how I think also in certain times we settle into tropes because they're so comforting. And then other times we break out of them. And that becomes like almost like an age of growing for literature. It's like all of a sudden there's a new concept that breaks through and it becomes a trope because nobody thought really to spin it, and all of a sudden it's okay. So for instance, the thing that's coming to my head most is Wicked. It's a fairy tale, right? Everybody knows the fairy tale trope and stuff like that, but Wicked took it and said, you know what, let's tell it from what the perception of the bad guy, which wasn't actually a bad guy. It spun the bad guy trope of being like, you know what? This wasn't a bad person. You just didn't know their side of the story. And it became like a reversed fairy tale from the villain. And the villain wasn't actually the villain. And that has become a new trope because now we have descendants and now we have like all kinds of different YA fantasy novels that are coming out from the perspective of what somebody thought was the villain, but it's really not. It's a different perspective trope. And I just think that is fascinating that we hit this new age where we're like, oh my gosh, can you believe that? And Harry Potter and the Chosen One. And there's just so many different tropes where it really brought new life to something that we just didn't really anticipate or expect it to punch us so much, and it definitely did.
There's like a whole other branch of that too. Like you mentioned Harry Potter and the Chosen One. And I think a lot of times what happens is like, because if you go and look at fantasy list of tropes, like people will have lists of tropes, and I swear like almost all of them always are something that Harry Potter did. But there's a reason for that.
There is.
Because Harry Potter was so big and successful and consumed the world for so long, so many people did that in return. They took that trope and they wrote it. And so there's like all of these books with that trope right after it and just gigantic waves of them. And so we burn out the readers.
We do. And now everybody's like, oh, the Chosen One arc.
And it's not that every book before it that did it bad. It's just that we went through such a spurt where there were so many of them, we got burned out. Like vampires.
We needed something new. Fairy tales, we needed something new. Vampires, you're right. That's a huge one.
And it's not that the Chosen One's going away. It's not that vampires are going away. And it's just, I mean, witches is one too. It's stuff that comes in and then is really big and there's lots of it. And then we kind of get over it because we're kind of flooded with it.
It's like a trend trope.
Yeah, there are popular tropes. And that what's popular now is not going to be what's popular in a few months. And
that's true.
It takes longer than a few months to write a book.
Gosh, does it
So
ever.
Please don't try and write your book around popular tropes or trends.
Yeah. I mean, some people do, but they're super fast, prolific writers and they just jump in and they somehow grab that wave. But at the same time, sometimes it's a wave and sometimes it sticks around longer than others. And sometimes they're done and they focused all their attention on this and it's like, well, that's gone, So I think it just depends. But finding something that you enjoy reading, that the tropes that really just capture you and embracing it and saying it's not necessarily a bad thing. There are things that we like to read. It is subjective. It's an opinion. It's art. So take what you love and say, you know what, this is something that I really enjoy, but I wish it was like this. guess what? That's what you need to write.
And that's what it is. It's not that, like, I would say don't do popular tropes just for the sake that it's popular. Do the tropes that you love instead. Because writing a novel takes a lot of work. You're in it for a long time. So you want to really enjoy the tropes that you're exploring, the characters, the storyline, the genre, the theme. They have to be things that you like. I would even say that you love. Because you're going to be in them forever. And if you're picking something just because you think that's what's going to sell, I think that's going to be a harder path for really finding the heartbeat of the story.
Right. And for diving deep and like being invested in your own work, because you have to be invested in your own work. If you're not like in the flow of what you're doing and you're not loving it, it's really difficult to dive deep into these characters to make them who they need to be, because you end up with this tropey shell. And I think that's the issue with tropes and why people are poo-pooing them, is because it's like, oh, yep, it's this not deep, exact same cookie cutter,
I agree,
piece of work. And you can do better than that. You can. You just need to pause and say, not even pause, just dive in deeper and understand that it's a person and it's a plot and it's a world. Dive into the world, explain the world. Don't just make it this, oh, yep, over here, it's a person. They're exactly like this other person. And this other person came in and they're exactly like this other person. We don't really remember their names because they're like everybody else. So,
And have fun with it. I mean, gosh, I think it's so easy to forget to have fun when you're writing.
Yes.
Because there's so many aspects, right? There's so many things to consider. There's so many elements to put in. You have to like make this amazing protagonist. You have to make this really deep antagonist who affects the story. Right. You have to have this amazing world. You can't have a blank screen. You have to have consistency. You have to have, like, there's just, it goes on and on. And so it's nice to have things that you love and that you have fun writing with, and to remember that so that you finish. Because if you don't remember that you love to write, you might not finish.
No, you have to remember that you love it. And then sometimes it is harder than others, because there have been chapters where I'm like, I am done. This is stupid. This is just, I don't understand. And then I get to the next chapter and I'm like, oh, that was a builder chapter. Okay. No, I'm fine now. It's okay. And it's just, seriously, the mood swings are ridiculous in the creative process sometimes. And so you can't just abandon ship because you're having a bad day and you're not feeling it. You just got to keep going and try to get it where it needs to be. And remember that there's always editing time. I mean, I'm working on a work right now. It is so close to being done. It is like, I'm literally in the last chapter of it being done. And this is my about 4th or 5th pass through. And I just added something that just tickled me, because I don't even know where in the world it came from. But, one of my characters that has been instrumental in stealing the scene, a side character, just came in and had like a little mini tantrum. And I'm like, where in the hell did this come from? But it was so fun. And I'm like, okay, well, if it's fun and I'm enjoying it and I've been through 4 or 5 pass-throughs and edits, then, it's going in. And so, you just have to enjoy it and just get in there and make it deep, because these things that you're thinking of and these things that really define your characters are really set them apart from the trope. Yes, the trope is there and it is a comfort zone, but at the same time, you've added so much more to it that you've just tickled the reader into thinking like, look how different this one is. It's not this exact character, even though I love that exact character. It's even better because this person I feel like I could go hang out with and have tea with and want to have a conversation with, and I want to know more about, and what happens next, and is there more in the series? You end up standing out when you really dive in and make it where it needs to be. So, man, all those details and those real characters.
And remember, too, like, if you have a character that's super tropey or a section of your plot that's super tropey, remember there are multiple editing passes. You may find that extra depth when you're going through it the second or third time, because other pieces are going to come forth. Your story is more than that scene. It's more than that chapter. It's more than that act. And once you start looking at it as a whole and going through it multiple times, you're going to start understanding more of how to find depth in the characters and how to find depth in the plot and the world. And you have to finish a first draft in order to get there.
You do.
And then you go through it a second time and you're like, oh, sure, this can be a nerdy best friend sidekick, but they're also allergic to dust or metal or some type of keyboard, or you start adding in little elements that push outside of that trope. And you start finding ways that for them to fit in that trope is actually challenging for them, or explaining reasons why it's hard. Maybe all of a sudden you find in the second round there's this conversation between your best friend, geeky sidekick, and your whatever main character, chosen one main character, that reveals that they hate computers, but their family wanted them to get into computers. Or that, I don't know.
And these sound like something that is like, could potentially be like frivolous. Like, well, why would I put that in? Let me tell you, there have been so many times where I've put something that just completely did not quite add up or make sense in. And then a draft or two later, I go, oh my gosh, it's the end. It's that... What? This is what just happened, and this person does this, and this is why I needed the super weird computer in here, is because it actually links to the bad guy. And it's like, it just, there's been so many like crazy light bulb moments where I'm like, I don't know why I'm putting this in, but you know what? Scared of mice. Yep. Big bad dude is scared of mice, and I don't know why. And for some reason, it comes back around, and I go, oh, that's why. And so put those details in. You can always edit them out if they totally don't make sense later on. And
it gives you more to work with, though. It gives you more material. It gives you
so much more to work with, and it gives you real people, and it gives you something where it's like, okay, well, this stuck, but maybe this didn't. But maybe actually this belonged to another character that pops themselves into your second or third draft. Oh my gosh. It was because there was a whole nother character here and I didn't even know it. There's so many things that lead. It's like this crazy domino effect that once you actually get your entire draft down, you go, oh, there's so much more to this thing than I knew. And then you just keep going. But embracing those tropes is really what ties everything together and makes it easy for somebody to pick up because they know and love what that particular thing is doing. But then you make it different and you make it deep and you make it more interesting. So, man, I don't care. I love tropes.
Especially if you have a story that you have gone through multiple, maybe it's like your life's work story. I've met so many writers who've been doing a book for,
yes.
I'm not one of those writers. I haven't been doing a book for 12 years. I don't know what you're talking about. But
what?
I've done other books too, okay? Thank you very much. Just that one is my baby.
I know, and that's okay. It's all good. There's nothing wrong with that.
But there's so many layers when you've been working on a story that long. Of course, it's a fantasy for me, so I've got like all these different races and different things, and that's just, there's a complexity sometimes to certain types of stories. And sometimes a trope can be a way to, it's like the Matrix. A trope can be like when he gets like downloaded with new information. Right? That's what trope is. I'm like downloading into my reader, okay, I know the world is complex and there's lots of different things going on, but here's some safety things you do know.
Here's your
snap in your cord. Download.
Yes. I love that.
And it gives them like an anchor. Things they do know and they're comfortable and familiar with. So not just like everything's crazy around them and they don't know anything. They're able to be like, okay, there's certain expectations with this trope because we're in this genre and I've read this genre and I've read this trope a lot. So I have all these expectations with this. Okay, well, I don't quite get all the pieces yet, but I know these things, so I'm holding on to them. And I'm going for this journey with you.
Exactly.
That's a writing tool, guys.
That is a writing tool. That is 100% a writing
Tropes
tool.
can be writing tools. I kid you not.
I know. No more mean talk about tropes. We will embrace the tropes.
And no more mean talk about having to pick a genre.
Yeah, that too. We're going to have a whole nother another podcast on genre. Oh, man.
You can put as many elements you want from different genres in your book. Go for it.
Absolutely. But you're going to have one to rule them all.
And because that's the reader that's going to love this story. Not because we're trying to turn you into a Stepford wife.
No. Gosh, no.
We just want you to have readers. Let me take that back. I want to have readers. So
Same. I also want to have readers. Finding your demographic and finding your readers is so important. And it's also, if you're starting out, find out what you love. Write what you love. When we say that, we're not joking. Like, write and embrace and understand what you love too. Why do you love it? Why do you love that character? It's probably because of a trope. Go and look at what you're reading and pick your top 5 books, not in the same series. I know that's so easy to do. Oh, I like 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 from this series. No.
I respect someone
That's
if they
cheating.
did that. What a brat.
That is cheating, right? They have to be completely different authors. How about that? Pick your 5 favorite books from different authors. Look at them and see what is it about them that is similar, and write what you love. Enjoy it, because you're going to have readers who do that too.
I would also challenge people to pick 3 books that were huge bestseller books that everyone loved and they did not. I bet you there's a trope in there that didn't work for you. There's a trope you didn't like.
Yep.
So for me, like, I really struggle. Alpha males are huge across in all genres. And there's this trope where the girl says she doesn't like something, but the alpha male says, yes, you do. And the story goes on and she's like, oh, you're right. I do like that. Okay. Do. I'm going to throw your book at the wall. But I kid you not, this trope is everywhere. This trope is really popular.
And some people totally love it.
People eat it up. I want to burn your book, but other people are going to read your book multiple times.
I don't. I kind of like those, but whatever. I think it depends. But yes, absolutely. There are definitely ones out there where it's just like, eye roll, nope.
And that doesn't mean that trope is bad across the board.
Gosh, it doesn't.
It means you don't like it. And that's okay. Yeah. Don't put it in your book. You have all the control of your book.
Which is just so fun to realize when you're a writer, is like, this is for me. Like, I'm doing this for me and I like it. And okay, this is mine, my baby.
I heard once, and I want to say it was Neil Gaiman. I'm not sure. But I heard the first draft is always for you.
Yes.
And then
I think that was Neil.
And then there's like the second draft is for the reader and the third draft is for the editor.
Yes.
And that made sense to me because writing is fun. Getting out the story that you want to tell that's the story you want. That should be your first draft. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Absolutely. Yes, just love the heck out of it and just enjoy every word and have fun with it. Editing is sometimes incredibly painful. It takes a while to understand it and to get it and to embrace it and to like it. We will talk about that in a podcast all on its own.
There's so many different types of editing and stages. Important.
Gosh, it's just so much.
It hurts and it's amazing all in the same time.
Yes. Gosh, it's true. You learn just so much. But for now, embrace the tropes. Enjoy them. Read what you love. Write what you love. And understand that it's not always a bad thing. Other people are in your boat with you. You just don't know them yet. But know what you're reading. Know what you're writing.
And remember, tropes can be a tool. It's a writing tool. It's like, I love the concept where I have this like tool belt that I'm putting different tools in to learn as I go. And tropes is a big tool for me. It's like a screwdriver or a hammer. It's an essential
pretty important
tool on the tool belt.
Yes.
So it's really good.
I love it.
Okay. So I have an idea for a challenge.
Oh.
So
they have lots of homework this week. It's fantastic.
So my idea for the challenge this week is that I'm overly exuberant and excited about tropes. So I want to hear your over exuberance and excitement. I don't care if you're ranting about a trope that you hate or if you're gushing about a trope that you love. Either works for me. I just want to know what trope gets you reacting the most, and I want to see it.
Oh, put some passion in your trope, people.
Yeah, I want some passionate tropes. That's what I want.
That's exciting. I like it. Good challenge, Cass.
All right. So, trope it up. Keep writing.
Punch the keys, obviously.
Yeah, punch the damn keys. Hello. Love it. All right. We'll talk to you next time, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And if you liked this episode, please subscribe and give us that clickable 5-star love.
Got writer questions or feedback? Reach out through our website. And until next time, make sure to punch the keys.